Hey, good evening. Welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. Well, we've had quite a few different things that have happened lately that are turning our lives upside down, if only by the threat. We made a video where I just walked around the local store and saw no signs of any panic or preparation, anything. And now we've heard, I'm not sure whether this is verified, but we've actually heard on the grapevine that there might be a couple of cases in our local municipal hospital, so of the coronavirus. So we're not quite sure whether that's true yet. But the other thing is, I was reading through, and of course it seems like the story of the Titanic and the sinking of the Titanic, it never quite goes away. It's a fascinating story, made more so because of the fact that it was an unsinkable ship, and the design was so extraordinary, and so the fact that it did sink, and the fact that it was supposed to be unsinkable, meant that they didn't carry enough life boats. They actually had around 2,000 passengers, but they only carried, I think, 25 lifeboats, so it was totally inadequate, and many people died. Now, here's what the title is about, the spooky prophecies, right? 15 years before the Titanic was even designed, before they designed the boat, a man called, let me see if I can look up his name was Morgan Robertson, and he was a writer, and he wrote a story of an unsinkable ship that on its maiden voyage hit an iceberg. Does this sound familiar at all? Hit an iceberg, did not, because it was supposed to be unsinkable, it didn't carry enough lifeboats. In fact, only 25. It was about the same dimensions, about 800 feet, and had 4 chimney stacks, just the same as the Titanic, and it was done to the same, in the story it was done to the same specification, like a 5-star hotel, so it was quite unbelievable. Now, in the story, which was fictional, 15 years, it was actually written 15 years prior to the Titanic going down, so there is no case for saying, well, it was really just recounting what happened. This is before the idea of an 800-foot long 4-stack boat that was unsinkable had ever been thought of, and the specifications, as I say, were the same. It was around 800 feet, had 4 stacks. It was unsinkable. It was unsinkable because it had so many watertight compartments, which even if I think some of them were filled, it would still not sink. Well, we found out, didn't we, the hard way, that well, we didn't, but many people did, lost their lives when it was proven that that would not make it unsinkable. Now, in the story, this was the synopsis when Mr. Robertson went to his publisher. The synopsis must have seemed extraordinary, and he had a hard time persuading a publisher to print his story, to print his book, and it was called, let me see, The Wreck of the Titan. So even the name was coincidental. It does get really slightly weird. It was called the Titan instead of as opposed to the Titanic. Same thing really, isn't it? And it was unsinkable, and it sank on its maiden voyage. And it sank, in the story, in the Atlantic around midnight, when everybody was partying, I guess, and in the same month of April. So the coincidences are almost endless, it seems, and so much so that he couldn't get anybody at first to believe that this was a workable story. Well, I thought you said it was unsinkable. Well, yes, it is, but it sank on its maiden voyage. Really, how will that work? But he did get it published, that's for sure. He got it published, and then along 15 years later, I think, when the story had pretty well faded into obscurity, I would think, along comes, so to speak, along comes the Titanic, and we all know what happened then. So it's one of those unthinkable fictional prophecies which was unintentional. It wasn't written as a prophecy of what was going to come true, because there was no boat. There was no boat that even remotely looked like that, because it was actually an enormous ship. So you go from that to the next amazing, and this one is an extremely current prophecy. We're seeing this come true as a prophecy in present time, in the present. And there is a writer, let me stick my glasses on. There's a best-selling writer, Dean Koontz, and in 1981 he wrote a book called The Eyes of Darkness. Now, I'm not sure whether that became a bestseller at that time, but guess what was in there? A bacterial infection resembling the flesh-eating disease. This is written in the book that was written in 1981. Of several years will arrive in 210, transmitted by humans by almost microscopic mites, undetectable import on exotic birds. Bird flu. He predicted that one. But it goes on. It says, in around 2020, a severe pneumonia-like illness will spread throughout the globe. No stepping back on this. He said that it would spread throughout the globe. I'm reading actually from the book now. Attacking the lungs and the bronchial tubes and resisting all known treatments. Almost more baffling than the illness itself will be the fact that it will suddenly vanish as quickly as it arrived. Well, that's nice to know, isn't it? Let's hope that he's correct throughout the whole of his prediction. It will vanish as quickly as it arrived, attack again, let me see, 10 years later, so we're going to get this back in 10 years, and then it will disappear completely. Right, so on the next page it does put forward a troubling, chilling observation about this particular disease. So it was around let me see, doesn't give the date, but a Chinese scientist named Li Chen defected to the United States, carrying a diskette record of China's most important and dangerous new biological weapon in a decade. They call the stuff Wuhan 400. Well, it's got a new name, but because it was developed at their RDNA laboratories outside of the city of Wuhan, which is all true. And it was the 400th viable strain of man-made microorganisms created at that research centre. Wuhan 400 is a perfect weapon. This is what I mean about about how chilling it actually is, because we've had observations made lately about China and the new Silk Road, and we've also seen evidence of them going to other countries, and I'm in the Philippines at the moment, so you probably know what that means, that they're actually making islands off the Philippines, and that's a troubling situation as well. So they have a global agenda, and I think that this is fairly well acknowledged. So knowing that, the fact that this coronavirus disease has come out of China is very troubling. It says Wuhan 400, as he predicted it would be called, is a perfect weapon. It afflicts only human beings. Now, he may be a little bit out on that, because they're saying that it actually transfers to animals. So it's possible that it might transfer to dogs, and dogs being what they are, dog to dog, like our dogs, are never tied. They're never captivated at all. They're free to go wherever they are, wherever they want to. And because of that, and we have females, we get sex tourists who are coming in to meet with our female dogs. So we get dogs from outside of which we know nothing coming in. So if it was transferable to, say, dogs, then that would be troubling for us, because we're in what others might think of as an ivory tower, because we're very isolated. It's just family that are on our hilltop, and so because of that, apart from the school kids and school, you know, we perhaps could hold it very limited here. But anyway, let me continue. It says, no other living creature can carry it, and like syphilis, Wuhan 400 can't survive outside a living human body for longer than a minute, which means it can't permanently contaminate objects or entire places the way anthrax or other virulent microorganisms can. Now, so obviously what you have is you have something which, as soon as it, and this would make it difficult for it to survive in the Philippines, and that is because we get higher temperatures, higher than certainly we like sometimes, but 90 degrees is not unknown. And this particular coronavirus does not do well in hot circumstances. But to continue, so it which means it can't permanently contaminate objects or entire places the way anthrax or other virulent microorganisms can, meaning that it won't survive once it's killed the host, then it will die. It will soon die after that, because as the temperature of the body changes, then it won't be able to survive. So the Wuhan 400 within him perishes within the dying person. Perishes a short while later as soon as the temperature of the corpse drops below 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Do you see the advantages of this? So in the characters, it's being played out in characters, it would mean that if the virus was dropped and used as a weapon, it could be dropped on an area where everybody would become infected, because they would make sure that it was dropped in a way that it was infecting everybody, and even those who were not affected initially would soon become affected, because well, for instance, the people who control the area would become infected, either directly from whatever was dropped or from contact with others. Like, as I said, for us, we have 7 children that go to school, and those children associate with other children, and those other children are living in various conditions which might be more prone to getting infected, and it will become infected quickly with the child, because one of the things is that if it gets on the hands, then we all do this, don't we? I suffer from gritty pollution, so I would be touching my eyes, and that makes the infection very fast. So kids are always doing that, and so it would be easily transmitted. Now, once everybody dies of the virus, then all that the conquerors, shall we call them, would have to do would be to come in and clean up the corpses. Not a nice thought, is it? But that's what would happen. That's what's happening in Wuhan at the moment. Is that people apparently, so we're told, we're not getting all of the straight up story, I'm sure, but some stories have leaked through people who are working in the medical profession out in Wuhan, trying to contain what is happening there, and they're trying to get the story out, if we're led to believe, if we take it on its face value. So they are telling us that, even saying that people are being shot. If there's any doubt, they're being shot and then the body carted away. Let's hope that that's not true, but those are the stories that we're getting, so